Tribal leaders and friends, I am honored to speak to you today as President of the United South and Eastern Tribes and the USET Sovereignty Protection Fund. Before I begin, I want to first acknowledge the many blessings that our Creator bestows upon each and every one of us on a daily basis. In times of challenge, whether within our own personal lives, domestically, or around the world, it is imperative that we remember these blessings in our lives. It continues to be my honor to serve you in this role. I am so grateful to stand before all of you once again under our guiding motto of strength and unity. And it is what binds us to one another as sovereign nations, as leaders of nations. Unity does not mean that we will always agree, but it should mean that we respect and value each other enough to prioritize finding a path forward together, especially concerning the most challenging issues that we face. Because of our greater shared interests and concerns, as well as our deep awareness and appreciation of the harm that results from division, we all know why we do this important work, but it never hurts to remind ourselves, as distractions can sometimes get in the way. We do this work because we are called to do it by our Creator. We do this work because the actions of our ancestors ensured our survival, a fact we must never take for granted, and we must always honor their sacrifices. We do this work for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come, to ensure our long-term perseverance and prosperity, in order for our communities and nations to thrive and for the overall wellness of our people. We do this work in pursuit of the righteous justice that is long overdue to us, justice that we will pursue no matter how long it takes for the arc to bend appropriately. And we do this work for the collective good of our membership and for Indian country overall. There is much power in this room, and it is our sacred responsibility to harness it, stand together as one, and defend who we are and what we stand for as Native peoples, as the original inhabitants of this land, grounded in integrity, principles, professionalism, and with the knowledge and confidence that we demand is just. We are successfully elevating the voices and interests of tribal nations from the South and East. Furthermore, because of our assertive and diplomatic approach, our willingness to put in the work to back up our positions, we are doing our part to bring greater visibility, awareness, and recognition for the benefit of Indian country overall. Every day we seek to embody our indigenous truths and values. However, it is important to remember that this does not all occur by coincidence and chance. To achieve our mission, we have necessarily grown and evolved with strategic intent and purpose. As an example, in this new fiscal year, we have added our first ever in-house general counsel, a goal that was set over 14 years ago. In addition, this year is the 10-year anniversary of the creation of the USET Sovereignty Protection Fund, our 501c4 organizational arm, and a critical piece to support the board directive to expand our important policy and legislative advocacy efforts. It should go without saying, but the breadth, depth, and impact of our advocacy and programmatic support offerings has never been greater and never been stronger. And we are still building. We aren't even close to being done. As a side note, just take a look at the USET SPF year-end membership benefits report for a high-level sampling of all that we are doing in pursuit of the charges you have given us. We all know that much has occurred in the world over the last several years, including right here at home. Political division, deplorable acts of racism, hate, and violence, the growing climate crisis. It feels like just yesterday that I stood before you talking about our related feelings and emotions. Then, COVID arrived at our doorsteps, shutting down everything, and ripped apart so many of our families and communities. And we continue to recover from the related trauma to this day. Unfortunately, just like I spoke to then, we continue to experience a uniquely challenging time in our history. The roots of injustice and intolerance that were present from the very origins of this country, and that we mistakenly thought existed only as a faint image in our rearview mirror, continue to be exposed and will likely be even more sharp and prominent throughout the 2024 election season. Sadly, according to most historians and scholars, we are experiencing the most divisive time in this country since the Civil War. However, I have long felt that Indian country can and should be better than the wider American public. When the ugliness and division is their norm, we should be exemplifying the beauty and strength of unity. Rather than going after each other and pulling up ladders as we fight for crumbs, Indian country should be demonstrating what unity looks like for others to emulate. Without unity amongst us, the path is easier for the United States to continue to break its promises and fail to live up to its trust and treaty obligations. Today, we are still advocating to overcome tremendous disparities and inequities found across our nations. The federal government continues to infringe on our sovereign rights and authorities, and it continues to fail to deliver on its trust and treaty obligations. As examples, you see that reflected in our advocacy on laws of general applicability, federal budget and appropriations, cultural and historic preservation, and jurisdictional challenges. On a daily basis, our actions in these areas are attempting to improve the lives and circumstances of those we serve. But we know there are built-in, antiquated, and paternalistic barriers that stand in our way. That is why we continue to prioritize advocating with vision and a demand for longer-term systemic change. We are planting the seeds of a more appropriate diplomatic model that would require the United States to engage us with the dignity and respect that we deserve. You can see this in the advocacy we are doing on the Marshall Plan for Tribal Nations, full and mandatory funding, rebuilding tribal nation homelands and economies, preserving gains from the Biden administration, supporting and promoting Executive Order 14112, and seeking solutions to some of our most complex, long-standing problems. However, right now on our watch, the very fundamentals of tribal nation-U.S. relations, the constitutionality of federal Indian law, and delivery on trust and treaty obligations are under attack by a well-coordinated and well-funded opposition effort. While the win in the Brackeen decision last year felt good, that feeling is only temporary. The attacks will not stop. If successful, the unique and special nature of our government-to-government relationship and the United States' ability to deliver on its trust and treaty obligations could evaporate, and the groundwork of assimilation and termination-based federal Indian law and policy goals set in motion centuries ago could ultimately be achieved. As alarming as that sounds, instead of proactively unifying around a strategy to protect our collective shared interests, Indian country is doing some of the opposition's work by focusing our energy on attacking ourselves, in addition to being reluctant to have the hard conversations to proactively define the relationship and craft the constitutional legal tests on our own terms. Without a unified vision, our adversaries will define our future in this nation-to-nation relationship, so we must bravely turn inward and be willing to confront these challenges head-on. One important aspect of this work is using language that is reflective of our special, inherently sovereign political status, both in how we talk about ourselves as tribal nations and in how we talk about our people. The language we use matters. No longer should we ever use the language of the colonizer, language of an assimilation framework and mindset. It matters because there are consequences to the words we choose. And if we don't use the language and definitions of our choosing, there are plenty of outsiders thirsting to make those choices and decisions for us. As I have stated before, it is well beyond the time for Indian country to reawaken to its own power, to understand this power, and to leverage this power for the purpose of reclaiming our rightful place as strong, sovereign tribal governments within these lands. I am and always will remain proud to be part of this organization that has lifted tribal nations, an organization that does not settle for mediocrity or complacency, but continues to press forward in pursuit of a better future. I want to conclude by thanking each leader on our board, each member of this organization, for doing your part as we work to accomplish our goals. I want to thank our staff for choosing this organization and for giving so much of their time and energy to support our member tribal nations and Indian country. Yes, we have some tough conversations and battles ahead, but together I am confident we can meet this moment and lead the change for ourselves and for all of Indian country. Thank you.